My name is Reverend Bobby Anderson. My Cherokee name is Two Spirits Walking. I'd like to recite a prayer that was given to the U.S. Senate in 1975, and it was written by ceremonial chief and medicine man of the Lakota Nation, Frank Fool's Crow. In the presence of this house, grandfather Wakan Tonka, and from the directions where the sun sets, and from the direction from cleansing power, from the direction of the middle of the day. Grandfather Wakan Tonka, grandmother the earth, who hears everything. Grandmother, because you are woman, for this reason you are kind. I come to you this day to tell you to love all people, watch over them, and give the young ones the understanding, because, grandmother, from you comes the good things that are beyond our eyes to see, have been blessed in our midst. For this reason, I make my supplication known to you again. Give us a blessing so that our words and action be one in unity, and that we be able to listen to each other. In so doing, we shall, with good heart, walk hand in hand to face the future. In the presence of the outside, we are thankful for many blessings. The children, the women, and the men, I pray that no harm will come to them, and that on the great island there be no war, that there be no ill feelings among us. From this day on, may we walk hand in hand. So be it.
Yes, someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection. I'm standing in the open-air chapel at Lakeshore Park. There are no walls to my left or to my right. All people come and go freely. May it be so in our time together here. Our opening words are excerpted from a poem by the Reverend Lynn Unger. She wrote it in the early days of the pandemic in the United States. She urges us, reach out with your heart. know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. Reach out your heart. Reach out your words. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Know that we are connected. We are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey, we welcome you to this, our Rainbow Connection.
When we were born, they tried to cover our eyes. Then they tried to tell us all what to see. We are discovering that did not work, for we were born to be free. It's a gay spirit singing in our hearts, leading us through these troubled times. It's a gay spirit moving round this land, calling us to a time of open love. When we were born, they tried to put us all in a cage, then tell our bodies what to feel. We have chosen to feel all the truth that our bodies do reveal. The gay spirit singing in our hearts, leading us through these troubled times. It's a gay spirit moving round this land, calling us to a time of open love. We are no strangers to all the pain that comes with fighting for our love. We are the outlaws in a love-sick land, whose crime has only been to care. There's a gay spirit singing in our hearts, leading us through these troubled times. It's a gay spirit moving round this land, calling us to a time of open love. You run and tell that old patriarch we're no longer blind to his ways. You run and tell him that we've stolen all the keys to the prison he has made. Tell him there's a gay spirit moving round this land, leading us through these troubled times. A gay spirit singing in our hearts, calling us to a time of open love. Sometimes it gets too hard to feel all the joy in the face of all the pain we see. But there's a healing place within our hearts. It's coming alive in you and me. There's a gay spirit singing in our hearts, leading us through these troubled times. It's a gay spirit moving round this land, calling us to a time of open love. singing in our hearts, leading us through these troubled times. A gay spirit moving round this land, calling us to a time of open love.
Spirit of life and love and all growing things, all the goodness on the way, persistent, active, imminent hope, you great love from which we can never escape. We gather here in celebration, carrying many names, many myths, many visions of you and all your wonders. We gather here in love, for love's own sake, to lift up the glories of diversity, to revel in the joys of the human condition. O great love, may we here cultivate depth, beauty, grace, and mercy, in a world that too often feels shallow, ugly, miserly, and mean. May we bring all that we are, all of our gifts as well as our burdens, and lay them on the altar, in whatever space we are in, with whatever it is that we are carrying. May our bodies feel a little lighter. May our souls shine a little brighter, and may we all know in our heart of hearts that we are your beloved children, daughters and sons and kindred kind, all beloved beings fashioned from stardust and possibility. Here on this day and in all days, may you be with us, live in us, and love through us as we love this world into greater wholeness through all of its brokenness. Amen, and blessed be.
Happy Pride to you. As we celebrate Pride, we want to recognize how far we've come and all that we've achieved, and we want to celebrate and party. And we also want to pause and remember the ancestors, the elders, the pioneers of our movement that have got us here. We stand today on the shoulders of those who did so much work for us in those early days and centuries, those who've gone before us. So I want to remember the Daughters of Bilitis and the Mattachine Society, and I want to remember those who were brave at Stonewall, who said enough is enough, and who fought back. Those whose resistance led way to what we called the Stonewall riots, which gave way to the celebration of Stonewall and gay pride parades that now happen around the world. We have come so far, and yet there is so much more work to do. For those of you who are living in isolation in small communities, we want to say to you, it gets better. It really does get better. And we need you to work with us, and we need to do the work and continue on everything that our ancestors and elders have done. We want to celebrate that we have achieved marriage equality. We want to celebrate the recent decision of the Supreme Court, but we also want to stand with our trans siblings, and we want to stand to protect their rights. And we, who are the rainbow people, want to stand together so that we protect trans people of color who are at such high risk in today's world. We want to protect those rights here in Knoxville, in the United States, and around the world where they're being threatened. We who are the rainbow people can recognize that we encompass people of color, people of all different diversities who are also part of the LGBTQIA+. We are the rainbow people. And when we realize that, it does get better because we know we're not alone. We have so much history and so many who've come behind us and prepared the land for us. And we want to work with you to keep making this world better. You are not alone. We are in this together, and it does get better. God bless.
Hello everyone, my name is Rawla Abdul, and I want to wish you a happy Pride! Today we are going to have a special reading of the book Sewing the Rainbow, the story of Gilbert Baker and the Rainbow Flag by Gail E. Pittman and illustrated by Holly Clifton Brown. Let's get started. In a small town in Kansas, where everything was gray and dull and flat, there was a little boy who was full of color and sparkle. His name was Gilbert. Gilbert loved visiting his grandmother's clothing store. He'd sit next to her while she sewed and draw beautiful gowns and costumes. Gilbert dreamed of someday bringing these drawings to life. But one day, his father took away his art supplies and tore up his drawings. Poor Gilbert. Surrounded by building blocks and erector sets, sports gear, and slingshots, Gilbert's colorful, sparkly, glittery personality started to fade, and he, too, became gray and dull and flat, just like the Kansas landscape. When I grow up, he dreamed, I'll go somewhere that's filled with color. But that didn't happen. Instead, when Gilbert turned 18, he received a letter that knocked every last bit of sparkle out of him. Look how sad he looks. Gilbert hated his flat uniform, and he refused to shoot the gun they gave him. I won't do it, he said. I'm not going to carry a gun. They made him do push-ups. They called him ugly names. But Gilbert wouldn't budge. The idea of shooting a gun made him feel sick. Look at that. It looks like Gilbert was in the army or some sort of armed forces, don't you think? So they sent him to San Francisco, where he would never have to pick up a gun again. The day Gilbert arrived in San Francisco, he saw magic. Instead of the gray, dull, flat landscape of Kansas, there were rolling green hills, the shimmering blue bay, and a cool white fog wafting over the Golden Gate Bridge. Gilbert was home. Finally, he could breathe. He could be his colorful, sparkly, glittery self. He thought about his grandmother's clothing store. He thought about the drawings his father tore up. And he realized he wanted all of that back. So Gilbert taught himself to sew, and he created fabulous costumes, just like the ones he drew when he was a little boy. Wouldn't this one just look so beautiful on me, though? All of them, actually. I'll take them all. Word got around fast. He sewed regalia for Mama Jose and her imperial court. He sewed costumes for famous singers like Sylvester. And just like the protests of today, that are going on right now, Gilbert sewed banners for protests, marches, and rallies. Gilbert's creations were everywhere. He was making the city more and more colorful by the day. There was just one thing that continued to blemish their beautiful city. It was a symbol in Gilbert's community that was a constant reminder of evil. "We need a new logo," his friend Harvey said to him one day. And Gilbert got an idea. Harvey and grown-up Gilbert. He bought huge bolts of cotton fabric, buckets of dye, and a lot of thread. Then he gathered up all his friends and got to work. They cut the fabric into long strips, dyed them in big trash cans, then headed to the local laundromat, that's where you do laundry, kids, to rinse and dry the strips. They ironed the creases so the fabric was nice and smooth. See? All of that fabric, all of that dye. Then Gilbert began to sew. They worked until dawn. By the time the sun rose, Gilbert and his friends had created 2 beautiful rainbow flags, but their work wasn't over. "A flag belongs in the wind," Gilbert said. See? The big day arrived. A crowd gathered around City Hall. Gilbert held his breath. Would people understand his flags? Up they went. The flags unfurled, flooding the sky with the spectrum of color. The city radiated with color and sparkle and glitter. And the crowd lit up like gold at the end of the rainbow. Today, the rainbow flag is everywhere, even in the small town in Kansas where Gilbert grew up. Wherever you see a rainbow flag, you'll know that it's okay to be your colorful, sparkly, and glittery self. The end. And I also want to add, on this very special Pride Day, I want to remind you that you're beautiful like the rainbow.
Oh, I am waking up to find my world between the dying and being reborn. I see what is and I see what could be. Can't close my eyes again and go back to sleep. Fill my days with blessed unrest
and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. How can I change our course? I'm just a lonely voice. Wish I could lose myself in all the noise. But if our Lord should rise, a generation proud with a mighty song, we could turn this world around. So fill my days with blessed unrest, and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. Fill my days with blessed unrest, and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide.
Ancestors all behind, and before me every child. I bring the power of a long unbroken line. So when our time is through, I want to know, did what we came to do for the future ones. So in our darkest days, may we all be strong and give our lives so life may go on. Fill my days with blessed unrest, and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel. Fill my days with blessed unrest, and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. Fill my days with blessed unrest, and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. Fill my days with blessed unrest, and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide.
Hey everybody, my name is Jack Knoxville. I am an Afro-Latino trans man, and I really appreciate being included in this time and in this space. It's not always that way where people are willing to make space for black and brown trans men like myself. In fact, quite often over the last few years, as I've been working to build up Trans Empowerment Project and getting more involved in both local and national politics, especially, I have felt a lot of exclusion from spaces that should normally be welcoming, under the guise of, this all lives matter. And it's been really eye-opening. I'm also on the autism spectrum, so things that don't make logical sense to me are very difficult for me to wrap my mind around. And there's just no logic in the level of hatred that's out there right now, in the level of racism, in the level of discomfort we have with one another. So I am always so appreciative of communal spaces where more seats are made. If the table's not big enough, then start over and get a new table, right? That's one of the things I really appreciate about the UU and the fellowship that I have found with the community leaders there. And it's just such a welcoming feeling, and it gives me pride to be a part of a community that is welcoming, even in the reddest of states, even in the most trying of times. There is this undercurrent, this desire to belong and build community together. And that's what keeps me going every day, is knowing that beneath the rubble, there's an entire new world that's forming. And I have so much hope for what this future is going to look like. Because we can't go back to the world that used to be. We cannot ever again allow things like subtle racism, subtle transphobia, subtle homophobia, subtle hatred to exist. There is no such thing as subtle hatred, right? Because subtle hatred, subtle bigotry is still bigotry. So, yeah, I just really appreciate all of you being a part of this event and standing up together and uniting in the love and desire for a better future. And I know for myself and to Trans Empowerment Project, our door's always open. If you are somebody who is trans, gender non-conforming, even an ally that just wants to help make things better, we welcome you with open arms. And yeah, I really appreciate this time and having this space to just breathe in the good that still exists in the world, the good that is emerging from behind these clouded skies, and to just celebrate that sunshine and bask in that warmth. So thank you all, and happy Pride.
My name is Reverend Colleen Dara, and I'm the lead pastor at Metropolitan Community Church of Knoxville. And my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm here today in conversation with...
My name is Jason Todd. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm in a conversion class at Temple Bethel.
So we bring you some diversity in our conversation today by our faith and the process of our faith journeys. We bring you some diversity. You can see immediately looking at us by age. Yeah, that would be me being the elder. And we bring some diversity of experiences as well. So I'm going to ask Jason some questions here. So tell me, what does it mean to you to be an activist today?
Well, there's a lot of factors in it. There's obviously going out and protesting and physically doing activism. A lot of protests going on pretty much every day these days. But a lot of it now is also online. I know for me, because I'm disabled, I can't always get out and do the physical protest, but I spend a lot of time educating, correcting misinformation, just on a personal level between me and someone else, kind of correcting their worldviews and pointing them toward resources so that they can learn more.
Yeah, activism looked so different when I was your age because we didn't have the internet, you know. Yep, I'm that old. But we did protests in the street. We certainly took to the streets many times. We did write letters, snail mail instead of email, to our elected representatives. And we tended to do education in like more large groups, like holding a class or an event, as opposed to the one-on-one relational piece that we have the emphasis on today. So that's an interesting difference. So we talked about protests. Have you been participating in some of the protests?
Yes, I went to the most recent one, the one on Juneteenth, and did the march with that. That was the main one I've done recently because, like I said, I can't always get out. But I've done other protests over the years. But it's really exciting, all of the stuff that's happening now and being able to be involved in all of that.
So how does that, like, this is Pride Month, how does going and protesting at Juneteenth connect for you to celebrating Pride?
I mean, the first Pride was a riot against police brutality by, Black trans women. And so this, to me, is probably the best way to celebrate Pride is to, fight for people's rights to exist.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, black trans women who said enough, and and enough that it evoked a physical response and actually a throwing of a punch and then a riot. And since then we protested. And it's important for us to remember that protest element. It's so important too for us to remember that Pride started with black trans women. My goodness, that's like three groups in that are considered minorities, right? Uh, so how do you identify with any of that? Do you identify with the GLBTQIA or some other alphabet?
So I identify I'm a trans man, so obviously with the T, but I also identify both as a bisexual and as queer. I kind of bounce back and forth between which of those two labels I use at any given day. Um, and it's been a long journey. I've identified all over the spectrum. Before I came out, I thought I was a lesbian.
Right.
So, you know, I had that for a while. And then I realized that I was a man and that I was bisexual.
Well, that gives you lots of different places of intersecting too, that you've had these pieces of experience in your life to say, well, then I have a better understanding. You know, they always say if you can walk a mile in someone's shoes, and maybe if you've even walked half a mile, it gives us a taste of someone's life, right? Yeah. When I came out, the truth is when I started to come out, I didn't know anyone that was gay, at least to my own knowledge. So it was a time of sexual exploration without even having any language or knowing people. And so then when I met somebody else that was like me, it was kind of amazing. I mean, there were no TV images at that time. So it was a different kind of world and different, the alphabet choices were shorter in terms of what was taught to you. And then I care for someone who's 87, who came out, you know, much before me, and she doesn't use any of those alphabet words. She uses some other letters, PLU, people like us. So it's interesting that there's such diversity in how we react. What are you proud of about our community? What are you most proud of?
I think we have come a long way, both in our community and in the world in general, because like when I was growing up and when I was first realizing that, you know, maybe I wasn't cis, which was about when I was about 16, I knew one other trans person. And I lived in a pretty big area. Like I knew a lot of people and I knew a lot of other queer people, but just being trans wasn't something that you just were or were open about. But now it's like it's so much more accepted, and I will get asked my pronouns by people, and like
Mm,
when I first met Rabbi, that was one of the first things he asked me, and it was just like it's a new world, and
mm.
within the queer community, because people are accepting like more of non-binary people, and you know, the alphabet soup, and just in the world at large.
So I'm proud that there's people like you who are continuing to do the work and that you are freer to be your authentic self in the world. So I'm proud of the people's whose shoulders I stand on, and then the work that my generation did. I'm proud that you can be you. And I'm also proud that you're willing to continue to fight because we haven't arrived yet. You and I were talking earlier that we're aware that in the same week, just about, we celebrated that the Supreme Court said there was protections for LGBTQ people in the workplace, and yet the administration rolled back protections for trans people with regards to healthcare. So it just points out to us that there's things to celebrate, and there's also still more work to be done. And I love that you made the connection with the Juneteenth protests and Black Lives Matter. And we were talking about that everyone, the whole rainbow, the reason that gay people have the rainbow too is that we include absolutely everybody. Everybody is in this rainbow. And so if we're not for Black Lives Matter, then no lives matter at all. Uh, and we have to do this work together. Yeah. Is there something else that you'd like to say to folks? Maybe to feel completely proud of doing this interview, or something you'd like them to know?
Yeah, it's just, you know, we still have a long way to go, and an important thing is just to listen to trans people, because we are willing to educate, and when we say stuff, I feel like a lot of times, sometimes people will unintentionally just brush it off, and I just want people to know to listen and to be willing and open to what trans people have to say.
Thank you. again, that connects to the Black Lives Matter movement, right? Listen and actually hear, and then do the work. I want to say to you and to other young people out there, don't write off your elders yet. We have things to contribute. We've got history to share, and we are still willing to do the work. We may do it differently than we did when we were younger. And we just really appreciate the young people having the passion and that you're willing to be out there in ways that we cannot be maybe now, or we're too tired to be, but we still have other ways in which we're contributing. So we also want to be listened to. So maybe all of us could do a little more listening and actually hearing each other and respecting each other.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jason, thanks for spending this time with me. And to all the people out there, we just want to say that, we may share a similar racial background, but we have diversity here of gender identification, gender expression, diversity of able-bodied, differently abled, American-born, immigrant, age, and that the Rainbow Connection is one that's really diverse. So let's celebrate that. Let's listen to each other. Let's learn, and let's work for a more just world. Any last comments?
I think that's about it. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. Take care.
A Litany for Survival by Audre Lorde. And what better time to do a litany of sorrow than at night when dusk is falling? For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edge of decision, crucial and alone. For those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice, who love in doorways coming and going, in the hours between dawns, looking inward and outward, at once before and after, seeking a now that can breed futures, like bread in children's mouths, so their dreams will not reflect the death of ours. For those of us who were imprinted with fear, like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk, for by this weapon, this illusion of safety, to be found. The heavy-footed hoped to silence us. For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to achieve. And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not remain. And when the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning. And when our stomachs are full, we are afraid of indigestion. And when our stomachs are empty, we are afraid we may never eat again. When we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. And when we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard, nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak remembering we were never meant to survive.
Ladies and gentlemen, Marsha Ambrosius, Gladys, Kelly Price, and Jill Scott.
My skin is black. My arms are long. My hair is woolly and my back is strong enough to take the pain inflicted again. they call me? My name is Aunt Sarah. Aunt Sarah. My skin is yellow. My hair is long. Between two worlds, I do belong. Yeah. My father was rich and wide. He forced my mother late one night. So what do they call me? My name's Saffronia. Saffronia. Yeah. My skin is tanned. My hair is fine. My hips might invite you, daddy. My mouth like wine. Who's little girl am I? Anyone who has money to bust. What do they call me? My name is Sweet Thing. Sweet Thing. My skin is brown. My manner is tough. I'll kill the first mother I see. Hey, my life has been rough. I'm awfully bitter these days because my parents were slaves. Ooh, what do they call me? Aunt Sarah. What do they call me? Saffronia. What do they call me? Sweet Thing. What do they call me? My name is Peaches.
In all the holy names of God, we pray. Holy One, you have called us into being through love. You have joined us one to another in love. You bathe us with your love despite our failure to live fully in that love. How good and pleasant it is when your people dwell together in unity. Shine your light upon your lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and ace children and their allies, that all may see your glory reflected in them. Grant each of these persons the strength to carry your blessing from this place to the next. May they be at home in any land, for all the earth is yours. May their hopes be set on your kingdom of justice and peace. May the lamp of your word guide their feet on the unsure paths of life. Our lives are but a breath, but our breaths are drawn from your divine spirit. You have created us as walking paradoxes, feet of clay, and yet divine image bearers. We are constantly restless until we rest in you. Grant all of us a deeper fullness of being and spirit by experiencing your love and carrying it with us in the journey ahead. May our work thus be full of the strength, glory, and joy that transforms hearts and opens minds, even as we are transformed by the mystery of love. Knowing and hearing us better than we are able to speak, receive our prayers in the name of all that is holy. Amen.
Thank you for joining us today for our special service of Interfaith Pride. Today's offering will be split between the Trans Empowerment Project and the Out of Appalachia group. The Trans Empowerment Project is a gender-inclusive organization that is aimed at identifying and creating necessary resources to further the empowerment and progression of the transgender community across the U.S. The Out in Appalachia group focuses on LGBTQ communities and individuals in the central Appalachian counties located in Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, and West Virginia. Our community members self-identify themselves along a wide spectrum, including but not limited to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, gender nonconforming, non-binary, asexual, queer, and pansexual. So these two groups are the organizations that we'll be supporting with our contributions today. If you're in a relatively stable financial place, we would invite you to give. The way you can give is to go to tvuuc.org/give, or you can text give to the number 73256, type in TVUUC and the amount. In the memo line, if you will put the Advancing Equality Fund, or in the drop-down screen, if you're giving online, if you will put the Advancing Equality Fund in there, we will make sure that your contribution goes to these two organizations. We thank you so much for being with us today, and we hope you have a blessed day.
Well, howdy everyone. My name is Brian Owenby, or rather known as on stage as Blakey Bridges, upcoming singer-songwriter here from East Tennessee. When this opportunity was provided for me to sing for this service, I looked at many different songs. This one has been an all-time favorite of mine, Imagine by John Lennon. The song was released in 1971, just after all the civil rights victories and marches of the 60s. To me, this song still speaks to our current times today. For someone who has been marginalized in the community as well as in churches too, the song has a message we need to hear to vision the community we want to live in.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only light. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion to imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger, else we're all family. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. Ooh. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Oh, someday you'll join me, and we'll live together as one.
Hi, my name is Marissa Richmond. I'm in Nashville, and I'm just pleased to be here just to talk a brief minute about Black Trans Lives Matter. Already in 2020, we have seen 14 trans women, mostly Black and Latina, who have been victims of violent hate crimes. Although we've had Black trans men like Tony McDade, who was actually killed by the Tallahassee Police Department. And that's just in 2020. The violence against Black and Latina trans people has been an epidemic in our community for a long, long time. We want to make sure that we elevate our stories. We've had people who've died in ICE custody, people who came to this country seeking asylum, who followed all of the legal procedures, but they were beaten and abused by ICE agents, denied health care, and died in ICE custody because they came seeking freedom in the United States. The violence has been erased. Even at a Black Lives Matter rally in Minneapolis in the past month, Ayanna Dior was beaten up brutally by 30 people. Although she did survive that beating, it was captured and shared proudly by the assailants. And again, this was a Black woman at a Black Lives Matter rally, and her life did not matter because she was transgender. And so people in the faith communities, we need your support. We need you to speak up. We need you to remind people that all Black lives matter, that Black trans lives matter, that we count. We do have people who are making significant inroads in society. Even in Minneapolis, they have 2 Black trans people on their city council. Many of you have seen the vice chair, Andrea Jenkins, along with her colleague, Philippe Cunningham, and many other Black trans people are making significant contributions to our society. And so we need you to speak up. We need you to be allies. We need you to speak against the hateful legislation that the Tennessee General Assembly keeps introducing year after year. And although I cannot ask you in a partisan way to vote a particular way, I can ask you to stand up for equality and to reject the platforms of hate and bigotry and discrimination. So we ask you to stand with us, to use your platforms, to use your communities, and to come together with us and to speak up and advocate for us. Thank you for your time and attention, and I hope you have a good day.
Come with me. Language, I beg you, build me a bridge between what's known and the mysteries, from despair to hope, from culture to culture, past fear. Don't be the dividing line. Be the connector, breath, song. Don't make me wait to cross over from fear to love. Too easy? Then I will be the bridge. Help each and all across. Step lightly, sing loud. Taste the sound. Breathe, love. Envision a country of kindness. Here, now. Don't wait till the other side. Word, be my guide. Take my hand.
Tasha Devon. Hello, my name is Tasha Devon, and I am going to read a poem by N. Scott Momaday. It's called The Earth. Once in his life, a man ought to concentrate his mind upon the remembered earth, I believe. He ought to give himself up to a particular landscape in his experience, to look at it from as many angles as he can, to wonder about it, to dwell upon it. He ought to imagine that he touches it with his hands at every season, and listens to the sounds that are made upon it. He ought to imagine the creatures there and all the faintest motions of the wind. He ought to recollect the glare of noon and all the colors of the dusk and dawn. For we are held by more than the force of gravity to earth. It is the entity from which we are sprung, and that into which we are dissolved in time. The blood of the whole human race is invested in it. We are moored there, rooted as surely, as deeply, as are the ancient redwoods and bristlecones.
Dig. Thank you all for allowing me to share this sacred space today. As I studied on what to share, I thought about the collective chaos and pain that seems to be reverberating from the TV box and the streets. It is a heavy and necessary time. I want to share a few words on hope, defiance, and self-care, and where I find these. You see, I wanted to save this garden that had been regrettably forgotten, but it turns out that this garden saved me. I planned like a fox. I unearthed an intricate system of beauty, and I noticed all of this stuff that was constantly trying to overtake it. I pulled ferociously, and until my limbs atrophied, I was being trained, my friends. I was being trained by Mother Nature. I dug out root systems and examined them. I clipped and I cut. I planted. I transplanted and I propagated. I sweat. I sang in praise and in protest. I communed with my ancestors. I watered. Oh, did I water? I meditated, glory, hallelujah. This garden was my call to action in the absolute simplest of ways. This is part of my self-care. My artistry came alive. My passion and the restorative properties of nature wash over me daily. This garden has trained me to be vigilant. This is my peace place. This is also my safe space. To call in instead of calling out family, friends, and even myself, where I hold groups of people up and where I am held up. Now I say to you, as my garden has often called to me, get up. There is still work to be done. There are weeds to be pulled and vines to dig up in your own garden. But especially on November 3rd, we mustn't stop now. Ashe.
Everyone can see we're together as we walk on by, and we flock just like birds of a feather. I won't tell no lie. All of the people around us, they say, can we be that close? Well, I'm here to state for the record, we're giving love in a family dose.
Living life is fun and we just begun to get our share of this world's delight. High hopes we have for the future, now our goals in sight. No, we don't get depressed, here's what we call our golden rule. Have faith in you and the things you do, you won't go wrong, oh no.
The rainbow connection. Rainbows are deeply symbolic in Judaism. In the book of Genesis, God tells Noah he's going to send a flood to destroy the earth to get rid of all of the bad people. And when the flood recedes and the earth is cleared, God sends Noah a symbol of God's promise to never do this again, and it was a rainbow. The ancient rabbis of the Talmudic period were in agreement that a blessing should be recited when one sees a rainbow. There were two different ideas of what the blessing would be, so rather than have two separate blessings, they combined the blessing into one. And the blessing that we recite when we see a rainbow is Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zocher habrit v'ne'eman, bivrito v'kayam b'ma'arav. Blessed are you, Lord our God, sovereign of the universe, who remembers the covenant and is faithful to God's covenant and keeps God's promise. Rainbows. They symbolize not just God's promise, but they also symbolize our promise to each other, to v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, to love our neighbors as ourselves. It is vital that all of us join together to support any one person who feels injustice is occurring. Injustice against one is injustice against all. Injustice against one means justice for no one. It is incredibly important. It is incredibly vital. It is necessary that we reach our hands out and embrace each other. Will we always agree? No. But if we disagree with each other as we are embracing each other in love, it means that there's an opportunity for us to be seen, for us to be heard, for all of us to be seen, and all of us to be heard. Let no man, woman, child, African American, Caucasian, Hispanic, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, let no one person in any one of those quote-unquote categories or any categories feel that they are less than any other. We are all equal. We all bleed the same red. We are all God's creations. And because we are God's creations, our voices, all of our voices, matter. I am so happy and thrilled to be a part of this celebration of life, this celebration of freedom, and most importantly, the celebration of each and every one of you.
The benediction comes at the end. It reminds us, it encourages us, and it gives us the strength and the energy to go forward and change this world. Each of the pastors and rabbis that spoke today told you the message of what a rainbow meant, what the pain is, where we must fight together and go forward and know that there is a higher power at play. Because we know now, silence cannot stand. To be silent in today's world is to acquiesce to the injustice, to the pain, to the horror. We are together. We are a party. We are the people who will go out and change this world to be a better place. Let the Spirit in you rise up and be filled with joy and know we are one.
Woo, woo.